Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about a recent piece of nerdy entertainment and we look at it in depth. Before I explain a little bit more about what the show is and what we're doing tonight, Justin, in the comments in Facebook Live, I'll get to your question after we do the introduction and explain a little bit about what DMZ is. So, what we do in this show is we talk about a recent piece of nerdy entertainment. We talk about it in depth because we're going to talk about what is good about it, what's bad about it, what worked, what didn't work, and then looking at deeper things like themes of the piece of entertainment, message, tone, and so on. What we're talking about tonight is the HBO Max limited series DMZ, based on a DC Vertigo imprint comic from the early to mid 2000s. If you have not seen this show, and it's a four episode show, and or you don't mind spoilers, or if you haven't and you don't like spoilers, you should probably be watching this show after you've seen DMZ. If you have seen DMZ and or you don't care about spoilers, then absolutely hang around. Ask questions in the chat, like Justin, and we'll get to them, and we'll talk about those as well as what I think about this particular show. So what is DMZ? DMZ stands for Demilitarized Zone, and that is in fact what it stands for in this show. The show is based on a Vertigo comic that ran for 72 issues, started in November of 2005. And the setting of the comic and the show are essentially the same thing. It is some near future in which what the comic describes as a second American Civil War has happened. But in that case, it's a war in which a bunch of very well-funded and organized militias, civilian militias from various Midwestern states, got together, declared themselves the Free States Army, and basically fought their way across the country to try to get rid of the authority of the United States government. And they wind up having their biggest conflict in New York City, at Manhattan. Something goes terribly wrong. There's a disaster in the comic. It doesn't explain this in the show, but in the comic, the United States Army forces accidentally murder more than 300 people who are trying to flee the island. And that is such a big setback for them that essentially they wind up in a stalemate. And Manhattan becomes a demilitarized zone. It is not controlled by either side. So, in this story, the main character is played by Rosario Dawson. Alma Ortega, also known as Z, because her middle name begins with Z, was trying to escape the island 8 years ago when things looked really bad, and it looked like there was going to be a war on the island, and accidentally lost her son. So she spent 8 years traveling through both the United States and the Free States Army's areas, and basically has decided that she needs to go back to the city to try to figure out whether or not he's still in the city, because it doesn't seem to her that he got out. So she gets snuck into Manhattan and winds up discovering over the course of the 4 episodes some pretty interesting secrets about herself, her son, about the 2 people that are probably the 2 most powerful people in Manhattan at the time, she's both connected to, leading out of Spanish Harlem and controlling much of the northern end of the island, or Upper Manhattan, is her former, I don't know if they ever make it clear with husband, but certainly lover and father of her child, Paco Delgado, played by Benjamin Bratt, and he's amazing. And controlling much of Lower Manhattan out of Chinatown is a former co-worker of hers when she worked at a hospital in Manhattan, Wilson Lin, played by Hoon Lee, who you might know from Warrior, and he's just awesome. So The story, so the series is executive produced by Ava DuVernay, and the showrunner is Roberto Patino, who you might know from also having been the showrunner on Westwood and Anarchy, and a weird British series called The Bastard Executioner, which it's odd. And DuVernay directed the first episode of the four, and basically what they've done is they've taken what is more of a story about a reporter who winds up going into Manhattan, Matty Roth, I think is his name in the comic. And it sort of tells the story of what's going on in Manhattan through his eyes. In the middle of the run, they do a bunch of stories in which they focus a little bit more on sort of secondary characters, and that's where the character of Z comes from. Z is a very, very minor secondary character in the 72 issues of DMZ as a comic. But they updated it and rewrote a little bit of the conflict and made it a much more personal conflict to make essentially a 4-hour movie, because you can't. You can do it in a comic, which is essentially somebody exploring a new world that they're going to, which is, he didn't know anything about what Manhattan was like as a demilitarized zone, and you get to see it through his eyes in the comic. That's not going to work as a TV show. You need drama. And so they've expanded Z's story into this tale of, a mother who lost her child and has to come back after 8 years to try to find him, gets involved in the, political and social machinations of the DMZ, of Manhattan, to a rather logical and very emotionally satisfying isn't the right word, appropriate ending. So, Justin asked, will there be more episodes? Everything I've read up until, I was just checking again earlier today, is that there won't be. The showrunner, Patino, has ideas for where they could go. Rosario Dawson has said that there was originally supposed to be a much longer series. It was supposed to be more like a, say, 10 or 12 episode series. But COVID and the pandemic hit, they hired, and if you watch this or you have watched it, you know that there are tons of acting extras. She said at one point that like her very first scene walking into Manhattan, actually I guess one of her first scenes walking into Manhattan is, he says as he balances that out, is this one here. And this is really the only scene where you have a sense that, it's a post-apocalyptic world. Most of Manhattan doesn't look like this. There's only the parts that nobody goes into because it's too dangerous look like this. Most of Manhattan looks like a rundown current Manhattan, frankly. Justin, it's awesome. I would love more episodes. I agree 100%, and obviously I'll get to that in my big wrap-up of what I think overall about the show. But like I said, it was supposed to be a much longer series with the potential of multiple seasons. But because it was so expensive to make, because they hired so many people, that they, once the pandemic hit, they weren't even sure they were going to continue or finish the 4-episode shortened series. And they decided that they did. And frankly, I like that. So one of the things I'll get into about what I like, I might as well start about things I like about it. I like the fact that it's 4 episodes. This is a super tight story. There's almost no fat. Even the slower moments set up, or then, if it's a slower moment near the end, reflect back on something very important that's either going to happen or did happen. And there's almost no fat in this thing. It's wonderful. And I'm not just talking about Benjamin Bratt's body. When he takes his shirt off for a fight at the end, there will be lots of very excited people in the audience. Let's put it that way. So I really like that. I mean, yes, I agree with you 100%, Justin. I would love to see more of this. I would like to see them do another 4 episode limited series and then maybe another. Keep this format. This works so well. It forces not only DuVernay in her first episode, which starts relatively slowly, introducing her, Alma, and then into the newer world, but builds pretty quickly to some very big and exciting reveals. And every episode after that follows that curve, or slope, I guess I should say. And that's wonderful. That's a great way to build excitement. Um, so I like that format. I would like to see them, if they do another set of episodes, to keep it in this 4 episode format. Works really well for me. And I know with the Marvel stuff, where they're doing, say, like a 6 or an 8 episode format, and I want so much more. If Marvel was forced to do a 4 episode, let's say Moon Knight had to have been 4 episodes, it would be, I think, even better than it currently is. Maybe not. Now that I think about it, it doesn't give. Well, that's not true. I was gonna say it doesn't give Oscar. It wouldn't give Oscar Isaac the time to do the brilliant stuff that he's doing in Moon Knight right now. But Rosario Dawson, Benjamin Bratt, Hoon Lee, everybody in here just acts their ass off. So, I guess that's not necessarily a valid comparison. But I like the format. That's one of the things I really like. In case you can't tell from what I've said earlier, I really like the acting. There are plenty of people, including on our team, who have problems with Rosario Dawson as a person for some of the things that are transphobic that she has said. And I agree. I also think this is some of the best work she's ever done. Whether you want to see her do that or not, that's your call. But this is really solid work on her part. Benjamin Bratt is just, it's no surprise that he can be charming, but he's amazingly charming and amazingly terrifying. Hoon Lee is just, he nails the character as he himself describes, or as Alma describes him, what he was to what he's become, perfectly. It's really good. One of the standouts is, Alma and Parko's adult son, Christian by the name, but Skell by his choice name, is played by Freddie Miares, who was in When They See Us. He played the adult Raymond Santana Jr., and was in The L Word for like 3 years. He's fantastic as, and again, spoiler chat, we are spoiling this. When Alma finds that Christian is still alive and is going by the name Skell, he is the most frightening enforcer on Parko's crew. He's brutal, absolutely brutal. And she has to try to reconcile her image of this little kid that got lost, this like 10 or 12-year-old kid that got lost when they were trying to flee Manhattan, with this 18 or 20-year-old just monster, frankly. And it's a great story, but we'll get to that as well. So, and all of the side characters, there's a character, Una, who is in control of the actual water supply station, whatever it is in Manhattan, that is, the waterworks. And I had boy, this person looks really familiar. It's Nora Dunn from Saturday Night Live back in the 90s. Now, Nora Dunn has done a lot of work since then. Some of my wonderful or most favorite bits, smaller roles, like the reporter in Three Kings, just perfect. But I haven't seen her in I don't think anything in a long time, and suddenly it's like, oh my God, that's Nora Dunn. The child actors, There are a number of them, but there are two very important ones. Um, Odie, who is played by Jordan Preston Carter, and Nico, his best friend, played by Venus Ariel. Um, they're really good. And I understand I shouldn't be down on child actors because when they're not great because they're kids, but sometimes they can bring an entire show down, and that was the case with Good Omens. Good Omens was fantastic. It was wonderful, and every time the kids were on, it was like, let's get back to the good stuff because they just weren't that good. Here they hold up. They hold up their end of the deal, and it's really good. It's fun to watch. Um, so yeah, fantastic cast, great acting, great directing and pacing, editing. I've already mentioned that how I like that shorter format and how so streamlined it is. The story the story is almost completely new. So all of the background is the same. Why Manhattan is considered this DMZ. Even some of the elements about the U.S. Army and the Free States armies um, coming back together in a potential conflict over Manhattan and people inside working that deal on either or multiple sides. Um, but Alma's story and all of it related. So the core of the story about a mother trying to find her son, that's all new. And it's a great story. God, I'm going to screw up his name again. Patino, as the showrunner and the primary writer, wrote this wonderfully. Um, he also, and he makes this point. So when the comic first came out, it was inspired by the incidents of 9/11 and our involvement in Afghanistan and so on. So it's very much colored and informed by um, U.S. Army actions and presence in Afghanistan. And so the main character is a white guy, a reporter, Matthew Matty Roth. Most of the characters are male and white, which so doesn't reflect Manhattan. And certainly wouldn't reflect a Manhattan in which the people who could escape before what looked like an all-out war was going to happen on the island escaped. Um, the poorer people obviously couldn't. The disenfranchised people couldn't. And that's what this world looks like. And this world in this series is much more accurate than it was in the comic. I think. Obviously, who's going to know? It's it's basically a science fiction story. Um, but so the cast here is very, very ethnic, multi-ethnic, multiracial, and it embraces that. It uses some actual existing gang terms. Spanish Harlem. Paco Delgado leads it through the gang of the Latin Kings, and that I think is one of the best things about the changes they've done to this. And then that changes the nature of the story. This becomes a story about disenfranchised people trying to get any authoritarian military, authoritarian authority. Well, anyway, off their backs. And that and a larger part of the tale, while also focusing very much on Alma's tale about trying to both find and then sort of save her son, Christian Skell. So I really like that update of it. And by focusing on a female character and making it somebody, a mother's story who's trying desperately to find and then rescue her son, it becomes a much more empathetic tale than just a photojournalist wandering through, kind of capturing the natives. I don't want to. DMZ is considered a brilliant comic series, so I don't want to cast aspersions on any aspect of it, but on the face of it, the optics of a white guy wandering through, you know, essentially a walled-in, demilitarized Manhattan that everybody is stuck in, is sort of taking pictures at the zoo, and that really kind of bugs me about the whole concept of the comic book. That is not the case at all in the series, in the HBO Max series. Um, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else I particularly like about it. I do like the use of the music. There is some. There's almost no music that is like needle drops. It's almost all diegetic, where it's used in the somebody's playing a radio or something. Um, but some of the songs are really good, and if there's anything else, the production values are fantastic. There are times when I kind of disagree with a very obvious sort of overly dramatic use of colored lighting. Uh, but I get it. I get, it makes sense. It's a little John Wick-esque. Every environment that John Wick fights in is so cool and interestingly lit. Lana, hi, welcome to the show on YouTube. We are spoiling, and Lana, just a second, folks. We're going to have to just block somebody here. And there we go. All right. And this is, it's a one-man job here, folks. So I got to moderate comments too. So the production values, I like them. They're very good. They're very high. They can be a little excessively stylized, particularly in the lighting. So what didn't I like about it? Not a whole lot. I mentioned a little bit about how they go a little bit of style over substance for for lighting and things like that, but that doesn't happen all the time. A lot of times it's very, very realistic lighting, and particularly in inside buildings and so on. There's a lot of dark spaces, so I wouldn't watch this in a brightly lit room. Watch it at night where all of the light is coming off of your screen, or most of it. Mr. Shadow, welcome to the show. So, anything else I don't particularly like about it? Not really. There's not much here to dislike. If you are not a fan of very personal, emotional stories, you might not like this. It is not there is action. There's plenty of action, but it is not an action story. It's a story of a mother looking for and then trying to rescue from a bad situation her son. All right, I get so yeah. One thing I found just a little too facile is how quickly the people in Manhattan take to Alma when she starts calling herself, actually Odie calls her at first, Z, as a political figure. There's almost no build up to that. She makes a couple of quick speeches somewhere, and then boom, this doctor or nurse practitioner. I don't think they actually make it particularly clear which she is when she was back before the whole conflict in Manhattan. Is apparently also a genius orator, and whips up a crowd in one speech. So that seemed a little easy. That's the writers taking the easy route. But again, 4 episodes, so I give them a little bit of slack there. And that's about it on the dislikes. There's not really anything else I can say that's not good about this. Again, with the understanding that there are people who very much dislike Rosario Dawson because of some of her stances, and if you are one of those, I don't watch it. You're not going to like anything she does in this. So, I wouldn't recommend that. And that's not a dislike for me, but it would be for you. So true. I very much dislike her stances. I very much wanted to see DMZ because I was aware of the comic and how important and influential it was. So, theme, tone, message, and so on. So it kind of hits you over the head with the idea of um, abuse of power and authority. And that's the not subtle message that gets driven home throughout the course of this entire thing. The stronger message at the core is family, and love for family in whatever form it takes, including willingness to sacrifice for said family. Um, Parko is Christian / Skell's dad, but he never considers him a son so much as an asset. Well, it's not true. And again, this is one of the complex things. Alma and Parko at one point talk about how really wonderful things were with them and Christian before all of this started going down. But since she left, he stayed and Christian stayed. And again, huge spoilers. The reveal is that Christian did not get lost. He ran away from her. And that's one of the things that she comes to realize is that her son didn't love her as much as he respected and wanted to be with his dad. So that's a very hard lesson for her to learn. So the tone is the theme is very much family and caring for family, including found family. Z becomes a leader of the found family of the people of Manhattan, and individually of Odie. So that's a very important and the strongest. It's also, there's a redemption arc, and again, a very complex redemption arc. Nobody in here is without flaw, and some people forgive and some people don't. Some people are willing to accept forgiveness and some people aren't. It deals with an awful lot of the different ways redemption can go down a path. So anything else? I think that's pretty much it as far as like bigger tones or themes or messages or so on. So would I recommend this? Absolutely, 100%. As Justin said over there on Facebook, it's awesome. I would love more episodes than just now. Overall, I thought they did really well, and I agree. I think everybody involved in this did a fantastic job. I would love to see, like I said, more 4 episodes in this series. Each one of them being a nice, tight, contained 4-episode mini-series, but I'd like to see a second season and a third, or however they would call it, a second series and a third. So remember, there's 72 issues of the comic, and in that, Roth encounters a lot of different people. So anybody's story could turn into Alma's story, or Z's story, or the next version of that. So I think it would, there's plenty of stuff to start as an inspiration and expand out into this newer, somewhat different version of the DMZ world. Where would I put it on a scale of 1 to 10? I think I'd have to give it an 8. It's a really, really solid effort. You could watch this whole thing, pardon me. You could binge this whole thing and it would feel not like 4 hours. It might feel like The Batman, which is a 3-hour movie. It might feel like Avengers Endgame, which is 2 hours and 45 minutes or whatever. But it wouldn't feel like sitting there solidly for 4 hours. Unless you're my age and you would have to get up at some point in there to go to the bathroom. So that's it, folks. That is the show. I would recommend go check this out if you haven't. It's a nice, easy watch. It's 4 episodes, and if you like dystopian stories, if you like social political stories, but more importantly, if you like really tightly focused, well done, essentially family drama with an awful lot of social and political stuff around it, this is it. This is the show. Leave you real quickly with a request that you visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/nerdcaliber and check it out. If you'd love to be a patron, we'd love to have you. We have 3 tiers, $2 for the lowest tier. We use that to go to cons and get more content for our website and for YouTube, places like this. So we will be having video from PAX East 2022, which ended this last weekend, coming up sometime, ideally in the next week. And we have multiple videos out of it. Saturday, our video team was there and just did a bang-up job. Victoria, Go Incognito on the camera. It just worked really well. Might even have a bunch of TikTok things coming too. So we'll see about that. Next con-like event is Free Comic Book Day, May 7th, and I will probably be at Double Midnight Comics up in Manchester, New Hampshire. And then the next con itself that I know for sure we'll all be at, or a big team will be at, will be Anime Boston here in Boston. And that is May 25th through the 27th. And I will be running the photo department. Nerd Caliber will be out on the floor with a press team, but also a number of our people will be on staff, like me, in the cosplay and photography suite, room 102. So if you are used to going out into the community row hallway, and seeing us at a table, we will not be there. To get your free photos, come to room 102, the cosplay photography suite. That's where we'll be. And those photos will go up on Nerd Caliber and Anime Boston. That's our deal with them. So we'll see you at one of those upcoming cons. We'll see you at an upcoming show. Our next show is Anime Octane on Monday. We have not picked a topic yet. Last topic we did was First Impressions of Spring 2022. So that's not on the table. So we'll have to see what we're doing. We're sort of pretty early on in the Spring 2022 season. We might look at something like a hidden gem out of the winter that we didn't get to. We'll see. We'll have a topic announced for you pretty soon. And then Nerd Week Live next Tuesday. Sorry, there was not one last Tuesday. I was under the weather. So Nerd Week Live next Tuesday. We'll talk about all of the nerd news of the previous 2 weeks, I guess, at that point. And our next full fat spoiler chat is something that I always forget to look up. And it is right here. It is. Of course, Moon Knight. Moon Knight will have wrapped up by next Thursday, and so we are very much looking forward to talking about the Moon Knight. So hopefully we'll see you there. Justin, will it be posted here on Facebook? Will what be posted on Facebook? I'll have to... I'll hang in and do a little bit more chatting while you type real quickly and clarify what that is. So, what other cons do we have coming up? We will have a team at PortCon Maine, end of June. I'm sure there's other things in between there that I'm missing right off the top of my head. The AnimeCon. Yeah. So we always post the link to the galleries on the website. So the easiest thing to remember is just go to www.nerdcaliber.com and you can check on the main page there to see whether a gallery has gone up. But we do also tease those here on Facebook. So if you look on our Facebook page right now, you will see that there are teases for the galleries from up to the middle of Saturday at PAX East 2022. So yes, they will be up there on our website. But that's it, folks. Please remember to stay safe out there. And if, the weather actually warms up here in New England and it no longer feels like late February, early March,